All right, so using Spokane as a sample of the entire country, um, and other activities that people are doing that I've noticed on the internet recently. Just just looking to see what they're up to. What are they doing? How are people reacting? Um, what's extraordinarily unclear, um, but seems to be a result is that the at least the periodic riots that are taking place in this country might, there's no real stated solid political reason behind it, just general unrest, and especially in the during the 1994 riots when the police that beat Rodney King were acquitted. The chant was "No justice, no peace," and that was a major event in the history of the city of Los Angeles. I haven't lived there in a long time, but I was there when it took place. I think it was around 1994, or maybe a little bit earlier. I don't know, remember the exact date. But of course, obviously, that kind of response to the lack of police oversight is not optimal. Um, Different cities have tried different things, and basically, having any police ombudsman seems to be something that's the trend that's going on lately. I'm not quite sure that the way things are being done to look into. There isn't really a systematic approach to the overall state of the interaction between the law and citizenry, of which the police are just an element of. It's more like we're just looking at the police. It's just the police. It's just in that way, and it's not really just the police. So I'm gonna play a part of a video here that basically there's a guy. He's also kind of given me the idea of a better way to deal with looking to the police. But this little part of a video here that's on YouTube, it basically shows you the breakdown of a game that some people are playing. Pretty much, they're going out. They're just trying to see whether different agencies or government subcontractors or what have you are willing to grant this individual his Fourth Amendment right to stand in a public place and take pictures of anything that's in sight within that public place, which is supposed to be a constitutionally granted right by the Fourth Amendment. Now, this individual has been arrested before. He has been charged before, but he had the charges dropped. He's had bogus charges filed against him. He's even had a fabricated police report written. But what's going on is it's consistent no matter where he goes. And he's mostly in the state of Florida, but he goes to Georgia sometimes. Is he gets a consistent response from all the police officers. There is some unified idea that the police are to handle situations such as the ones he presents them in the way they do. And that's basically to approach him, ask him what he's doing, ask him for ID, and then he'll refuse it. And then they'll say, well, I can arrest you if you refuse it. And then he'll say, no, am I being detained? They'll say, yes, you're being detained. We're conducting an investigation. Then he'll say, what law do you suspect that I've broken? Then they say something about suspicious activity, which there's no law related to it. But of course, they have the gun, and they have the authority that if they say you're detained, you can't leave. In some cases, they'll understand what the rights are, and they'll just say, okay, well, I understand. You don't have to show me your ID, and it goes through that rigmarole. And I will say that on rare instances, this individual posted a video where they actually, the law enforcement that he comes across with, and it's almost in every single case, the law enforcement will at least harass him. That he gets hassled to a certain degree for doing what's supposed to be a constitutionally guaranteed activity. And what's ironic about that is, of course, police officers are law enforcement officers, of course, and so what's happening is that we have law enforcement concerns about safety. Maybe they're even getting directives from, that come out with terrorist alerts, and they've been coached, or there's been some kind of guide that's being followed nationwide that coaches what the police are supposed to do under those circumstances, which is basically attempt to violate the Fourth Amendment. No, not many of them even know what their limits are, and then they go away. So that's a case of, or the police may actually be required. It seems like the better way to put this: the police are actually required to find out who they are. If they're pointing their cameras at a government building but he's not required to tell them who they are. So we have laws that are in conflict with each other, and there really hasn't been anybody to really kind of go out and audit these things. Well, this guy has, but he'll post a YouTube video up, but there's no official report. Nothing really comes of it. I thought about it. If there were some kind of agency that did this kind of work in a more official capacity and would spot check various cities around the country, maybe sponsored by the FBI or what have you, then the FBI comes to, say, Spokane and has some undercover agents that are doing things that to see how the police respond, and then go through the legal process, and then maybe have some staged crimes that take place, or simulated crimes, and the police respond to them, and then take them out to go through the legal process, and then those people that are independent of the city and have an interest in the upholding of constitutional law could then write up a report and point out when these things are violated. Now this video, which is fully available, I'll do snippets from. Basically, this guy has his rights violated. I think I'll just go find this other one. It's a better one. This guy was in Orlando. Let's see. There was actually a clear-cut case of him if I could find it. I'll just take parts of it. And we'll see what happens, and then we'll find out whether whether the police always tell the truth or not. Okay? Okay, so that's the police call. He's hanging out. He's hanging out at this corner, and what he's doing is he's taking pictures of officers that drive by to see if they have their seatbelts on. Okay. What ends up happening is then we get into this whole game, and then finally they get him on some trumped up charges. So let's see what happens here.
Hey, how you doing? I'm alright. How much? Taking pictures.
Why?
Just taking pictures out in public, that's all.
Huh?
Just taking pictures out in public.
Just happen to give all the police cars coming to go into the station.
Yep. Just taking pictures out in public. Just gathering information what public officials do on public property. That's all.
Gathering information about what public officials do on public property.
Yes, sir.
You have nothing better to do with your day.
It's none of your business what I do in my day. Now is it?
Sorry?
So it's none of your business what I do in my day. Now is it?
It is when you start doing stuff like this.
Yeah? What's wrong with it?
What's wrong with it?
Yeah.
Well, it could be construed as maybe gathering intel on a public or a governmental agency for purposes of an attack or something like that. I don't know.
That's right, you don't know.
You tell me.
I'm standing on a public sidewalk taking pictures. What about it?
So we can resolve this really quickly. Do you have any kind of ID or anything like that? We just want to make sure you're not here trying to...
Okay, thank you. I'm not. I have no ill will, no ill intent. I'm just taking photographs. I'm working on a story, and beyond that, I'd rather not tell you anything else because
Here's the thing. Do you just have some ID so that way I can let people
I don't have
know?
any idea. No.
Okay. So that way we can at least let them know who you are.
Okay. If I'm not being detained, you guys have a nice day. Am I being detained?
Yes, you are right now.
For what reason?
Come here.
I don't consent to, sir. I don't consent.
Making sure you don't have any weapons, sir. That's all.
So I'm being detained for what reason?
Walk to the sidewalk. We ask you for an ID.
What's your name and badge number?
Roman 14712.
Okay. So I'm being detained. Tell them that I'm out here. I'm a journalist gathering content for a story.
I just need your name. That's all I'm asking
Hard
for.
about that.
I just need
Because
your name and your date.
it's none of your
birth to let
business
them
what my
know.
name is. I'm not doing anything illegal.
Okay.
If I don't give you my name, what's going to happen? I'm not refusing.
Here's the thing. Just make it easy for all of us. We'll get your name. We're going to make sure you're...
I'm working on a story.
News agency?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You said yes to both. Are you a journalist for like a...
So we just keep going in the same circle. What are you doing here? I'm just taking pictures. Okay, I need to see some ID. No, I don't need to see your... You don't need to see my identification. These aren't the droids you're looking for. Then, am I being detained? They don't answer. Then he walks away. Okay, if I'm not being detained, I'm leaving. Yes, you're being detained. Okay. Then they pause. They wait like 30 seconds and they do this thing. I need to see your ID.
that we have, okay? We're trying to figure out if you're here to either harm us or other people. If you're out here to do something that's...
Now, that's completely unconstitutional. We've turned into a police state, basically. This should not be happening. What the auditors would do is they would come out and they would find out if the police departments understand people's Fourth Amendment rights and uphold them. And other things.
That's not gathering any.
Are you guys required to wear seatbelts?
Are we what?
Required to wear seatbelts.
We have a policy that says you are.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
I think he takes off. Oh yeah, wait, hold on. So he takes off, he's starting to go. You should have the constitutional right to take those pictures. The Supreme Court has upheld that, so the fact that they're harassing him is basically a violation of his rights. They're trying to measure some stupid shit so they can get him on some ridiculous, traffic ticket code violation. They finally find something. He replays some of this stuff.
Owner of the vehicle.
He calls in his tag.
Officer Licentra continues his lie by claiming that he initiated his traffic stop based on prior knowledge that my driver's license was not valid. From Officer Licentra's narrative. I initiated a traffic stop based on my observations and knowledge that the registered owner did not have a valid driver's license, but the video clearly shows that Officer Licentra claims he stopped me due to an obstructed tag.
This is a traffic stop. Roll your window down all the way.
What am I being stopped for?
Your tag's obstructed, sir. Florida state statute requires that any portion of your tag...
And the visible and legible are all clear and distinct and free from defacement.
His tag is not obstructed, basically.
Can you hop out of the car real quick for me, sir? Okay. You take my seatbelt off? Huh? Did you take my seatbelt off? Go ahead, take your seatbelt off. Oops, sorry.
You be placed under arrest for driving while license suspended with knowledge. You do not have a class...
Now, what happened with this situation? They checked his tags to get his identification, find out who he was. They followed him to his car, checked his tags, found out who he was. They first, before the results came in on the radio, they said, "Oh, your rear license plate is obstructed," claiming that the plastic border around the license plate was an obstruction, which had already been struck down as a, the Florida Supreme Court ruled that wasn't a violation. Then they checked his driver's license record in the Florida DMV, and he apparently owns a tractor or something like that, in which he needs a different kind of license for than just regular driving. Some federal regulation came out, and the state of Florida did a mass cancellation of the portion of the driver's license that would allow him to drive a tractor or some shit like that. But it still didn't. He was fully licensed to drive this car. Well, they claimed that his driver's license was suspended. He ends up going down to the DMV.
Arrested me and took me to the Orange County Jail, where I would spend 12 hours behind bars. On Monday morning, I visited the DMV in St. Augustine to verify that my license is in fact valid and not suspended. Pay close attention, Officer Lucintra.
But your driving license is not under suspension. It's the CDL portion is disqualified. And I just went over there to see if there was something that we can give you saying that the license
That was a commercial driver's license.
was not under suspension. So Mrs. Hill's and Mrs. Hill's not in today, and you'll send out to everybody, but Brenda has it, and she's going to like your 2-year-old. You can't drive big trucks.
Okay.
Only your passenger vehicle.
So, is Officer Lucintra a good cop protecting and serving the public from dangerous criminals? Or is he a liar who manufactures probable cause in order to put an innocent man in jail because that man committed the non-criminal offense known as contempt of cop? Please give the Orlando Police Department a call and let them know how you feel about Officer Lucintra's actions.
All right. So, police will do that sometimes. They do. And it happens a lot, and it happens all across the country. It doesn't just happen. This is Orlando, okay? It doesn't just happen just in one city in one state. It happens everywhere. It doesn't happen all the time, but if you don't cooperate with them, they will find a way to get you. There's some cases where this guy... Anyway, so a better idea than having some police ombudsman reading police reports after the fact or a committee to read an ombudsman's conclusion based upon internal affairs conclusion based upon police reports that were made after the fact, in which only softball questions are asked to the police officers, and they, of course, provide the correct answers for the purposes of being exonerated. And then we have stacks of exonerations that go through, and the man that's 2 positions removed from the police officer that is only able to observe internal affairs, conduct investigations, at best sometimes is only able to come to the realization that he's got the police officer's word versus the citizen's word, and what does he do? He just exonerates, if that's what internal affairs does. So, it was rare, very rare, that Tim Burns was actually able to come up with reports that differed from what internal affairs does, and that's why. A lot of these things have to do with their judgment. If there wasn't a camera here, they caught this all on camera, we would just have some guy talking into a YouTube video behind a camera saying that, well, the police officer I swear to God, the police officer, asked me to exit the vehicle because my license plate was obstructed when it wasn't. And you go, yeah, sure. Who you going to believe? Tie goes to the policeman. In this case, If Internal Affairs had all the facts without this video and read his police report and heard what this guy had to say, they would have exonerated this officer. Okay? If there was ever an investigation without this video. But now that we have this video, we have more context. We know what was going on. We know what was said. We know the demeanors of the people, etc. I'm not advocating necessarily body cameras, but that is a big help. That would be part of the solution. A better way to go is to have a more comprehensive solution, not just body cameras, but also, and not just car cams, not just citizen cam. I mean, you know, we can go into George Orwell mode with cameras everywhere, you know, and every officer has a heavy camera device, you know, strapped to him in some fashion, you know, sending the signal back to the mothership through wireless. That's Orwellian, it seems, in some respects. What you might do is a little better is to have audits, okay? So let me explain this a little bit. Now, he calls these things audits, and yeah, they kind of are, but they're basically tests of procedure. Let's talk about exactly what we're talking about here. So the presumption is that when police officers interact with the public, that the members of the public's constitutional rights are upheld. That's an automatic assertion in every contact with the police. And you can test that assertion by checking out the video camera and deciding whether the police report, you know, and you can go into Orwell mode, or you can do it another way. You can have periodic crime simulations, okay? And see how, you know, with people that the police don't know, you probably want, this would probably be done through the FBI, actually. And they can go from city to city, and they can show up, team of, you know, 10 or 12 people. Maybe they could notify Internal Affairs under confidentiality that, yeah, we're going to be out in the city, and so we'll let you know when our guy gets arrested. So you could spring him out of the jail, and we could, you know, compare the police officer's report with what actually happened. And they could have cameras. This guy has a very fancy set of camera in his glasses. But also he's a witness. He's an impartial witness, and he's only there to test what the police officers are doing. And these people, of course, would have to be honest. You know, they would have to have no reason to want to go after a particular police department. You wouldn't want to have someone that lived in, you know, Vancouver interact with the Vancouver Police Department during the audit. But what an audit would do is it would look at the entire system and way that the police department does their policing, the way they gather their records, the way Internal Affairs works, what the police officers are taught. You know, all that stuff would happen later. Okay, initially they would just see whether some law is being broken or not. When these people go out and they get into a situation where the police officer should respond, you know, have a simulated crime of, you know, a man and a woman yelling at each other loudly in an alley, like it happened with that one case in 2014. Let's see what the police officers do. You know, make sure that the people participating in the test, of course, and this would be an unannounced time, so they wouldn't be pre-announced. It could happen any time, in any city, in any place. So that way the police officers would never really know that if they happen to fabricate a police report or happen to use excessive force under the circumstances, if in fact they're interacting with an audit, you know, let it go through the process, see what the police report says, and then, you know, we'll see what the person that was in the simulated crime says. The police would not be informed of what was going on, and then just the idea that could happen would change an awful lot of things. I think sometimes police officers do change, like this guy did, and it happens. Change their or pad their police reports a little bit to make sure that they get a conviction. And since their word is gold and no one's going to disagree with what they say, we've seen this. It's proven out by what's in the Ombudsman Committee. The Internal Affairs reports. Cop's word against a witness, well, cop wins every time. It's only when a fellow policeman supports a complainant's complaint that things go in favor of the person that complained. But the presence of an ombudsman under the circumstances and setup that we have now, I don't see how that could be effective. I don't. And at least in Spokane, not we, but Spokane, because I'm not part of that. In the committee, who knows how they're going to react? It seems like it might be threatening to the police department, and they may have not wanted it to happen. There's a reason why that passed through initiative, and it wasn't sponsored by someone elected to the government, because not that it would. There's guidelines the police have to follow. There's, in this whole thing, I mean, it's a cat and mouse game they go through, but they do go through the cat and mouse game, and basically, am I being detained? Okay. Well, am I under arrest? Am I free to go? You know, all these little distinctions, you know, they have to have a certain amount of time, or they only have a certain amount of time to, an undetermined amount of time, but a reasonable amount of time, whatever that is, to say that the investigation's over and announce whether an arrest is going to happen or the individual's free to go. But this is only one aspect. Okay, this guy is just testing the Fourth Amendment rights of people to be able to take pictures, whether it's in front of the Orlando Police Department or in front of a prison in Florida. That's a right everybody's supposed to have, and hardly any jurisdiction. If you watch most of his videos, you're going to find out that in every circumstance, some law enforcement officer comes to visit him and ask him questions and attempt to get his ID. It's in rare circumstance that it isn't a long, drawn-out, disturbing drama that takes place. And so, just find things like, and if cities know that, the FBI might be visiting them once in a while to conduct these tests, they might sharpen up their training on their own initiative, and police will be a little more conscientious when they're dealing with members of the public, a little more careful not to violate their rights, and a little more honest on their reports. And I would say there is some dishonesty that takes place. It's absolutely clear, and this one right here shows it. And this is not the only instance. It happens all the time. So I guess you could say that's my follow-up. I still haven't looked into anything else with DeLiesel, and I'm probably going to move on just to doing stuff with MK Ultra. I mean, I think that a better way to do this, instead of getting into some kind of mudslinging contest in which, right now there's nothing really conclusive. It just seems as though the process is ineffective. And instead of, getting to this finger pointing and resignations and assassinations that may even escalate, and who knows, in the near future, it might be better to approach things in this manner. Get some people out into the streets to interact with police and see how they react and report back with the, with in fact them not actually violating a law, but simulating a crime, and the police, under the belief that a law has been violated, and see how they react. I would suggest that probably the FBI would do that, because we're dealing with federal law. Searches and seizure, Fourth Amendment, various issues like that. When those issues come up, that's federal jurisdiction. It's a national issue. That's universal to everywhere people live in the United States, under the United States flag. So that's my idea.